COVID-19 has devastated families and communities, and the world's most vulnerable people have paid the highest price. Low and middle income people have lost their jobs, homes, and lives at the rate double or triple other groups. The pandemic turned back cloak at 25 years of progress on gender equality, education, poverty reduction, and hunger. For us at VYAPT, this became a greater cause, and we pledged to build hope in communities and masses for a better tomorrow. When we stand together for a larger cause, our faith and conviction, grit and determination grows. And if this has to do with humanity, which is the basis of our existence, it becomes all the more important. As various leaders join us to share their narrative, we feel proud to express ourselves to be part of your growth story in VYAPT Global Growth Series. In our growth series today, we have with us Mr. Kishore Jayaraman, who is the president at Rolls-Royce, India and South Asia. Mr. Kishore Jayaraman, with more than 3.5 decades of experience, has been instrumental in his contribution for industries. Welcome to our show, Kishore.
Thank you very much, Pankaj. It's a pleasure to be here with you all.
We start with our first curiosity, Kishore. We are aware of the happenings in the world and businesses in the last 2 quarters, where we have also witnessed a slump in economies across the globe. But what are the opportunities, if any, this crisis has created for your industry?
Well, I'll start off by saying that, no one should ever waste a good crisis. And before I go into a single industry specifically, I think we are in 3 businesses at Rolls-Royce. So we have the civil aerospace business, and we have the defense business, and we have the power systems business. So each of these businesses have products and services that are very different. And each of these industries have been affected to varying degrees. And each of these industries will show us a way forward into the future, which will be different than what we have been used to. So in our civil aerospace business, we power the wide body aircraft. So these are usually for long distance travel. And these carry people from United States to Australia, or from UK to Africa, South Africa. So these are very long distance aircrafts, and these are very large engines. And it constitutes about 50% of our business. And in that business, it has been affected a lot. It has been affected a lot because with the lockdowns that happened worldwide, with the borders being closed, people traveling from point A to point B has reduced a lot. But as with everything else, it is something we need to think about and say, how do we sustain that business for the future, but how do we also protect that business for today? And so we have to make sure we have enough cash to protect the business. We have to preserve our people, and we have to position ourselves for the future. We cannot let go of all the research and development that we do, because it's a very long cycle business, both from a product development point of view and from a product life cycle point of view. And in that business, worldwide, what has been affected, we strongly believe it'll all come back faster than it went bad. And the reason is people have gotten used to a certain lifestyle. People have gotten used to meeting each other. People have gotten used to probably not spending so much of time in traveling, but more so with their whatever they wanted to do, whether it's to meet people, whether it's to go for the holidays, whether it's to go and see a new destination. All those things are never going to go away. These have become everyday needs, just like air conditioning is becoming an everyday need. These are not going to go away. It is a temporary hiatus. And that hiatus will go away. And we believe that when the hiatus is gone, the industry will just start blossoming again. Will this impact the capital investments? Yes, because there's been a revenue crunch. But it doesn't mean that it's all going to just stop. People are going to start traveling, so the need for aircraft is going to grow. The question is how and when. And in the meantime, how do we manage? Then you have the defense business. Now, if you look worldwide, geopolitics has become a very critical factor. I think there's been more people who have moved into a localized world than people have moved into a globalized world. We saw globalization the last 20 years. We are seeing a little bit more of the localization that's happening, and there'll be a new normal where global and local will mix and it'll become global, right? That's going to happen, but that is going to cause changes. Now, when those changes happen, how are we going to be positioned for those changes? Is going to be very important. And I think we are looking at it and saying, how do we position as a company from an R&D point of view? How do we position our company from a services capability point of view? How do we be more local, but at the same time, make sure that their local needs are met in different countries, right? And also make sure that we don't completely lock ourselves in. And that's happening with India as well. I mean, if you look at the South Asia region, we are seeing the borders closed. People are trying to sustain. People are trying to figure out how to become reliant, self-reliant. And it's one of the primary drivers for the Indian government as well. But in the defense business, because of the geopolitics, I think countries will become Atmanirbhar. Countries will become more and more self-reliant. So every country wants to be Atmanirbhar, right? They want to be self-reliant. And I think what COVID has really done for us is basically shown us the need to do it and shown the need to do it with agility. And in defense with geopolitics, we have seen the happenings in the South Asia region, but that is not just South Asia. I think it is more global. I think there's going to be a need for countries to become more and more self-reliant from a defense point of view. And we have a very strong defense business, which spans the aerospace side, and it spans the naval side, and it spans the army side, right? And in India, we participate in all these three different forces, and we are able to contribute to them not only for today, but we are able to work with them on what the future should look like and how can Rolls-Royce position their technologies there, what do we need to do for R&D, etc. Now you look at the power systems business. Now this was basically for powering of airports, for powering of hotels. It was a reciprocating engine business that will power very high-end niche products. But then in order for us to compete, we also needed to localize in India. So we are creating a joint venture here in India, in Pune with Force Motors. And we will be able to supply these engines not only for India, but for the globe. And we will keep expanding that portfolio. And when we expand these portfolios, what we are doing is we are becoming a sort of local model. Mm-hmm. And we have talked about this global model many, many times in many different forms around the world in the last 20 years that I have heard the word. But I think it's going to take a new meaning with what is going to happen. And the industries are going to be looking at it, and people are going to be looking at how they will use the products and services differently than before. But the basic needs never goes away. And the greed might have gone away, but the needs never go away. And as long as the needs exist and as long as greed exists, I think we shall see all these three industries flourish. Right? That's our future view of how the world looks like. What we're trying to manage is how do we get from here to the time when all this starts taking off. So there's got to be that little bit of a gap that is going to be there, and we need to make sure that we fill that gap purposefully.
So many opportunities at hand, Kishore. And in one statement, you actually meant that there are months when nothing happens, and there are weeks when months happen. So
exactly.
In times to come, obviously, a lot of opportunities will shape the entire industry, and we will see more growth stories to come from Kishore. My curiosity also comes from the first curiosity itself, Kishore. When you talk about a lot of collaboration happening, and you termed a new word, which is global plus local. How do you see the growth prospects of the industry in the next 2 quarters in India and South Asia? And a sub-question to that is, what are the transformations required to leverage the changing landscape?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Pankaj. And thank you for asking. And, the key thing here is that the need for people, right? The future, we are going to depend on self-reliance. We're going to have self-reliance, and that is going to kick in a new form of industry development, right? We have already looked at Make in India. We have already looked at Atmanirbhar. All these visions have to translate into action, right? And I think we have all talked about V-shaped recoveries, U-shaped recoveries, and some people have even gone ahead and said that there are K-shaped recoveries, which I'm still trying to figure out what it is, but that's my ignorance. But the key here is that, look, regardless of it, I believe that we are already seeing a V-shaped recovery. And if you believe in the stock market to a certain degree, the stock market has come back to its previous levels and even exceeded those levels. But all these stock markets are showing an underlying strength in the companies, because the stock market is nothing but a group of companies, and the companies are showing some value. How are they able to make that value? And I think companies have learned how to sustain these gaps of weeks, and which could have been months and which will not be years. And I think the next 2 quarters are going to see rapid increase in growth in terms of GDP, because people have been having pent-up needs over the last 8 months, which are going to show up once the vaccine comes. Mm-hmm. And there are already 2 companies that have announced vaccines, right? Mm-hmm. It's a beginning. There are about 5 companies with 5 vaccines in their phase 3 trials, and all these are going to start showing up. And I think, eventually over the next 1 quarter, this whole vaccine story will unravel. But we also have cure, right? And today we are seeing a lot more of cures that are coming up, and more companies and universities and organizations who are coming out and saying that I can do this, I can do this. And there are answers which are coming out. Before it was like, maybe this will work. But now there are answers coming out, there are people's lives being saved, and eventually this will become another flu, right? Yes, there are deaths associated with flus, but it is not that people are afraid of the flu. And I think people are going to stop being afraid. People are going to start having more and more trust in the systems, in the cure, in the vaccines. And I think this will create that positive spiral. And that positive spiral is what is going to show us the way over the next 2 quarters to really good growth. Right? And I'm not going to base my growth on just something like a vaccine or a cure, but I'm going to base my growth on the consumption needs of the people, on the needs of people to be able to sort of transform themselves internally and say, what is it I need and how do I go about living a life? And I think that need of people has shown tremendous growth over this COVID period. And now the next point is that, we have to look at how do we transform as organizations, as companies. I think we have to put faith in our people. I think we have to believe that people have always done the right things. But we also know that people have learned how to work from home and deliver to the organizations. So the work from home is going to be a new concept that's going to come up. But then work from home to be effective, you need to make sure that you have outcomes and you're able to measure the outcomes. And I think companies have to focus more and more on technologies in order to measure the outcomes, in order to allow people the freedom to work from home or work from the office. And I think this new normal is going to be a mix of home, office, which means different technologies. Example of different technologies is here, you and me talking over a video conference. And I think these things are going to become more and more. It's not because of a COVID situation that we're going to do it, but we're going to do this because it's going to be the new normal. And it's going to all come together. And so that transformation, companies have to transform to digital. They're going to look at more and more digital technologies. They're going to look at more and more manufacturing technologies. They're going to look at more and more of technology in general, whether it be in terms of prediction of the next COVID, or whether it be in terms of the development of vaccines for the next COVID prediction much ahead of time. Look at the mutations in the pharma industry, look at the infrastructure needed, look at the platforms needed. It's going to be tremendous, opening up tremendous opportunities. Over the next 2 quarters, all these are going to unravel because we are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not a freight train.
So again, an optimistic view of the growth because of the kind of situations which is changing in the environment. We had seen a lot of fear happening 3 quarters below, and now we are seeing that fear is going away and we are moving towards the vaccine and then towards the cure as well of this virus. So as this crisis can be turned an opportunity and the growth prospect for the entire industry. So when you talk about this growth and opportunities, and you have been so optimistic about the businesses, can you also share that what are the job prospects would this growth and opportunity create for your industry?
So look, I think the primary thing about jobs is that companies have to be successful. Only then they're going to grow. When they grow, they create employment. So for companies to be successful, it is a partnership that needs to happen between the government, between the industry, and between the universities. And the reason why this partnership is important is because when we talk about new technologies, when we talk about digital manufacturing, service, all these different areas, you're going to need people with a different skill set. So the universities are a very key integral part of this whole system. And the industry is going to be the one absorbing or creating the jobs. And for them to work well, they need to have processes, platforms, and they need to have a mechanism and infrastructure which the government can provide. So the whole collaboration that happens between academia, between the industry, and between the government is going to be extremely critical as we come out of this pandemic and we look at the new future, right? And if we are not able to match the skilling to the needs of the industry, and the industry is not able to match to the needs of the consumers, I think this equation will break, or this equation will be slow. The inertia will be very high. And in order for them to remove the inertia, that's where the government comes in. And I think they can oil this machine between these education reforms, between healthcare reforms, between industrial growth, between ease of doing business. I think there's a lot of potential to be unraveled and to be, what should I say? I would say to be let loose.
Unleash.
And I think it can be really positive growth. I'm not trying to be just optimistic, but this is a scenario that exists. The pessimistic scenario always exists, but we can look at the pessimism and say that I don't want to do anything, or we can look at the optimism and say this is a much better way for us to think and do things and position ourselves than to become the doomsday sayer.
True. In fact, the kind of employment opportunities what you talked about, that government will be a glue, and there has to be a collaboration with industries, government, as well as different universities, so that you come up with a mechanism to create more and more jobs. And jobs would be created only when there are growth in industries, and the growth in industries will come only when there are enough opportunities for the consumer to have some kind of investment, or some kind of spend on expenditure on other things as well, apart from their livelihood. Very well said, Kishore. In fact, that is definitely something our viewers wanted to hear from you, and they are really getting excited about the future ahead. So my fourth curiosity, Kishore, comes from you as a leader, and our viewers wanted to understand from you that is there only a linear curve in your life? Is there an exponential growth in your life? Or you have also had zigzag times in your life, maybe in your personal as well as professional life? And if you could probably share some views on how do we ensure that our desire to grow remains untouched even in the toughest circumstances?
I mean, it's a good question. Well, to be honest with you, it's always been a zigzag. So it's never been a linear or an exponential, it's always been a zigzag. But the zigzag, the overall zigzag, if you draw a line through the center of it, should be linear. To a limited degree, it should be a growth, right? And so there have been moments where it's been great. There have been moments of challenges. And I think at the end of the day, we all have to learn as we go through life. And I think from the day we are born to the day we die, I think we all are learning something or the other. That's one thing that I've learned after this many years, both working and from this many years of being a family man and raising children and aging, right? But the issue is, in all these things, the bottom line is that resilience is a must. Whether it be an organization or whether it be an individual, I think resilience is a must. And being resilient is easier said than done. And but I think that is what is going to keep everything going. It is okay to fail. I think everybody fails, but getting up and dusting off and moving along takes a mindset that basically says that, look, these things happen. This too shall pass. You shall just have to keep going, right? And I think that's point number one. Point number two is that people are everything, whether it be your boss, whether it be your peer, whether it be your employee, whether it be a friend, whether it be a family. I think people are ultimately everything. Life is driven by people. And if you understand that, I think we have to start thinking every time that we do something or every time we want something, to think about how the other person will think or how the other person will feel. And I think that can translate into the pandemic times. It was a lot more of empathy and sympathy. And in times of where you need to get work done, of more of a little bit of edge, more of a little bit of making sure that the focus is not lost, and in happier times to have the smile and a laugh and be light. So I think it's going to be a lot of people, interactions with people, how we associate ourselves. So it boils down to behaviors, and we have some core values. Each of us have some core values that never go away, whichever environment we are in. And if those core values, they are all inherited. People are not born with it. People learn it. And I think if people can unlearn it, right, the bad ones, and can focus more and learn more on the good ones, I think the journey becomes that much easier in life and that much more fruitful in life for one and all, right? So I would go with the resilience piece, which is very important. And I would go with the people piece in terms of behaviors and second thing. And I think more importantly, learning the curiosity piece. And I think every opportunity we get to learn, we should. This pandemic has been a learning for me in many different ways, right? In many, many different ways. And I cannot do justice by mentioning one or two. But the bottom line is every day has been a learning, and every day has been an opportunity to better myself. And every day, is probably a gift. We can look at it as a gift or a curse, but we have to start looking at it as a gift. And again, I go back to my optimistic way of saying things. We can all look at it as a curse and say, oh, this is bad, that's bad, this is terrible. But then remember that there's somebody else who has it worse. And always remember there's somebody else who has it better. So think of it as a gift, and do the best we can every day and continue to strive to be better.
So Kishore, you talked about resilience. You talked about that one has to be optimistic and think about the brighter future ahead. And also one has to be adjustable in nature. One has to be adjustable towards the environment and constant learning so that one can learn new things in life. So these are something you shared to our viewers, and it was really, really great. Thank you, Kishore, for being with us and sharing your views. It was of immense value to our viewers, in fact, and it was great interacting with you in VYAPT Global Growth Series.
It's been my pleasure and privilege to be here with you all. Take care. All the best.
Thank you, Kishore.